Hey guys, it's us, ThinkTalk, and we are super excited to be doing this. It's our first video, at least our first video that will be going out there, and our excitement. We've been planning this for quite a while now. I mean, you must have been seeing our posts and all that stuff. The main idea behind our page and our channels, it's basically we see that the world is extremely nuanced with social media these days. There's a lot of conversations out there. And we thought that when we talk between ourselves, we do have an interesting perspective to some of these things. And we would like to, throw it out there, share things, and also, keeping in mind that the world is extremely nuanced. Um, so many of these interesting perspectives, it's also good to have it out there in a structured way such that it helps people as well in structuring how they think, right? Sometimes we see that a lot of other channels are, coming out there also sharing their opinion, which is completely acceptable. But sometimes we see that they are, going for the shock factor, taking a little bit away from the balance that is required for a lot of conversations. And that's what has pushed us to do this. But before we even do this at all, you would see that we have posts out there where you guys can all react to, share your opinions. They are all valid. Even if we don't talk about them on these videos, they are all valid. It's just we would like to discuss some of the nuances around things as well from our own perspective. But without further ado, I think we can go right into the topics of today. Um, What's the better post to start with, if not a post completely about good and evil, or bad and good, or whatever it is that we want to call it? I said good and evil, but I think we called it good and bad. There's nothing better than starting with that because what can be more nuanced, right? And we have the topic today. So how we're going to play this out is I'm going to ask you, Ibra, I'm going to ask you what you think, yeah, and you can walk us through your thought process and all, so we can understand your perspective on this particular one. So the question is, I'm going to read it out exactly the way we have posted it, right? The question is it accurate to say that there exists no inherent good or bad behaviors, but rather varying perspectives?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. What I personally think is that I don't think there is good or bad. I think it's always coming from the place of the person that is um, looking at the world from his or her perspective, right? I mean, we can justify either there is good and bad when it comes to like dealing with the legal system or anything, or just so people can behave in a certain way, or um, for society to kind of be sane, right? But when it comes down to people's motivations to do things, I don't think anyone genuinely believe, yeah, what I'm doing is bad, or I'm going to go do this thing because it's bad. I think everyone would find the justification, at least most people would find the justification to do what they do, and reason behind what, like why it makes sense for them to do what they are about to do. That's what I would think.
Hmm. That's understood. So to me, I think I understand. Let me try to. So basically, you're saying there's no good or bad, right? Perspective matters a lot,
Yeah.
regardless of what the system wants us to, how the system wants us to behave. You
Mhm.
believe that it's just all about perspective. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's where I stand. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, there are two sides to it, but yeah, share your own, share your own. What do
No,
you
I
think?
mean, I have questions, right? In the sense that, so if there are no good or bad,
Yeah,
and it's just about perspective,
yeah.
is there one thing? Is this something that you think is applicable to every single action and behavior? For example, someone kills another person. Is it good or
I
bad?
mean, people. That's why I try to explain. Like, for the person who just killed someone or is planning to kill someone, there must be, at the end of the day, I believe we are still really, really emotional animals, right? Whether we try to, um, you know, put logic and everything to situations to try to clarify certain things, most of our actions are still mostly emotionally driven. So, like someone who is about to go out there and kill someone has already felt like this is why it makes sense for me to kill that person. And that's like the two sides of the coin now. Like then there has to be something to fix that, right? So it's a different conversation when we are looking at it from a government's perspective, right? But like when it comes down to how people see the world individually, I would assume that most people just do what they feel like is best at that time. So someone who is going to kill someone, to answer your question, wouldn't necessarily feel like doing something bad. I think that person might, I mean, I've never killed anyone, just to be clear. I'm just trying to get in the head of anyone who is trying to kill someone. That, I mean, like the gun violence thing in the US, for example, I think when you see most cases or when you read the news about them, you always see, yeah, some sort of background story behind these things where people where maybe close relatives or like neighbors and stuff were like, yeah, he has always said something like this, or it feels like maybe immigrants are the problem, or this are it's always about something that justifies why that action is being taken place, or is going to happen, or why I'm doing this, or, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in that sense, I do agree with you that there will always be reason. There will always be a reason. Yeah, there's always reasoning behind an action. I agree with
Yeah,
you, and I agree with you in the job of the system or the government or law, right? So I would think
exactly.
what actually guides our behavior within society are
Yeah.
laws that we have in constitutions and all that stuff, and I get that. However, I would argue for the sake of it, I would argue that there are certain things that might be inherently good or bad. I would argue that we have that. Yeah, and this is interesting. For the sake of it, I think we can always frame whatever it is that I'm about to say, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
similar to how you've said it, but just for the
For the
nuance a little bit
nuance,
here.
yeah, I get, yeah, okay, go
I
on.
would argue that we have good or bad, right? And I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So philosophically, everything is perspective, right?
Mm,
Philosophically, it's all perspective.
mhm,
Now, keeping that in mind, we have things that there's no way to look at it. It just hurts someone else, even when there is a reason behind it, right? So let's think
yeah,
about. I don't want to use the gun violence thing because it can be quite political for some people. But anyways, let's think
yeah,
about someone that murds someone else, right? And their reasoning in their head to do it is um, my forefathers. Yeah, this is an example. My forefathers used to own slaves, so there's absolutely no reason for me to accept that this black person. And I'm not saying this is how some, just thinking. I'm pretty sure there's someone out there that thinks because my forefathers managed to enslave these people, I must be superior to them. And because I'm superior to them, I'm believing that I also have the right to kill them. The same way we feel like we have the right to eat cows and whatever you eat, right?
mhm,
Now, if
mhm.
that person kills another person, can we walk through how that is? There's a reason behind it, but can we find a way to see that as a good thing?
I think that's going back to the question of, I think then we might have to split it up into two things where we then say from what perspective. Like, I think yeah, okay, I think that doesn't still cut it. think, yeah, you will be right to then think that inherently things that are just bad, like hurting someone else. Um, I think what we are trying to ask here, or at least try to achieve here, is from that person's perspective. Like, who is the judge now when you ask, is there good or bad? Good for who? Is it for the person or for the society? I think, yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. So, like,
Yeah. So no, but that's an interesting way. Yeah. But because I didn't think about it to say let let's think about it. Is it even good for this person to have
I mean, I wouldn't
taken the
know.
life of someone?
I, I,
I,
I would, I would, I would
yeah,
argue
it's
that,
tough, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Because I do feel like so in the summary of my own answer to the question, because I haven't done that yet. The summary of my answer to the question would be there are things that are inherently good or bad, but it has to do with nature. I think the only thing that I can find as an example that is absolutely good or bad on its own, regardless of the context, always
yeah.
have to do with killing someone, taking
I
a
think
life.
that's what I wanted to like bring out. Like I would have, I want to argue that that's like the most extreme
Yes,
example that we could have used because
because it's
now,
it's
for context,
nature.
yeah, yeah,
Because it's nature, and
yeah,
there's no way we can. Everything else that is a man-made rule. I think when we look at good or bad from the perspective of the law, then it's always dependent on the perspective of the law. Okay, like it. Oh, is it good to steal something? Well, depends on how you're looking at it, right?
yeah.
Because that's a man-made thing. We created all those things that could potentially be stolen.
Hmm.
Is it good or bad to lie? Well, it depends on the perspective. This is, more, we are both alive and this is an interaction between us. But is it good or bad to kill someone? There is a perspective there.
Yeah.
There is a perspective there that can make it good, right? But okay, this person
I
is
mean,
absolutely going to kill me for that bad reason that makes no fucking sense.
I think,
And now I'm defending myself
yeah,
and I kill that person first. Is it good or bad?
exactly. I'm not even going to kill me. Like I even wanted to paint a situation of, I mean, where a country's military is going out to do some or go to war, for example. So, like, that's also a form of, okay, we are defending our country and ourselves. So that's why we are doing this. So
Yeah.
does that then
Depending on
justify?
if you're defending your country in your homeland, that maybe makes sense, right? There are situations where they also then use the word defend, but you're actually taking the war somewhere else. How is that defending your country?
I mean, there are always ways to explain such situations, you know. So, I think, yeah, at the end of the day, you were branching to this side, but you didn't like really go into that. So I want to bring it up now. So now talking about animals, right? Like you were talking about nature, then it came to my mind. So this kind of scenario where not even scenario, like our day-to-day life. So I mean, I'm not vegan or vegetarian, I eat meat and all. So there's this
Yeah.
argument for
We
like
both love meat. We love
vegetarians
our meat.
like that's their argument. Like I think this that would be a perfect example for the question we are asking because now from the perspective they are trying to see things from the perspective of the animals that we eat, right? Like cows, chicken, and all. Like
Hmm.
so, how would you take that then in this situation? You know, would you then think? Because for me, my answer is yes. Like that's the natural order of things. Like I feel like we are just using logic to kind of um to act civil and justify or to make everything just logically make sense. And nature most times is not even it just happens, you know. We might be able to scientifically prove why it's happening and all, but yeah, they just happen the way we are. Why do we breathe in
In the
oxygen?
sense
Why?
that the old concept of something being good and something being bad could also be entirely made up by man, right? This is just a function of us trying to function as a community. And
Yeah.
man, I would argue maybe it's not completely made up by man, but made up by
the society
higher
itself.
higher living beings, right? Because I think I've heard stories around the way elephants or something as well, or lions in their community, they have is, in a lion pride, they have rules of what is actually acceptable and
Exactly.
what is not.
Did you see
And
the video of this chimp? Like, I think you shared it with me one time where, like, when the chimp gets into a fight, he loses, like his whole family and all.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So it's just a system, right? It's always a system that we have to create as entities that interact with each other. And maybe
Yeah,
from that perspective, we'll always find good or bad with regards to interacting with each other. But your answer that there is nothing good or bad in nature itself could potentially stand as well. Because everything that has happened in nature scientifically, it's just a question of evolution and survival. And anything goes. In nature bared to its utmost
naked,
simplest form,
like just
everything
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Everything goes. But can we function as a society that develops and right in one way, creating extensive list of what is good and what is bad has allowed us to also survive. So this is just our own way of playing the game of nature.
Of
We
nature
set
in
rules.
in a cohabitating way, in a way where we can
Exactly.
all live peacefully among each other.
Yes,
It's,
we set rules. But I think the conversation itself that we've just had now clearly shows that it's extremely nuanced. Perspective
yeah,
matters a lot. However, when you're living within humans, within a society, I would say yes, there are certain things that have been defined as good and bad. And when you flout those things, you just have to be ready for the
for
consequences.
the
And
consequences.
interestingly, there are positions you get to in life that, some of the things that you might think would affect you a lot probably doesn't anymore. The consequences are not coming to you. If you become the president of your country, I'm sure you get away with a lot. If you become a billionaire, you get away with a lot. And is it bad or good or
I,
whatever? From our perspective, at least from my perspective, I think it's all just in the air, right? If you are there and you do it,
one question then, because now you're talking about president and all. Then I was thinking, for a president, does it also matter who also is talking, not just like the like I'm talking about roles in the society, for example, like a president of a country. We definitely have to make tougher decisions. So does that make a president inherently bad or like just you get what I mean? Like I
no,
would
no.
imagine
I think, I
even
think, yeah, I don't think you can. I think that's also why the law, because every decision we make can impact people. I think when we start to think about the third person impact, this is why they're good or bad is just fluff, in my opinion, which, um, supports your argument. And that's why I said, for the sake of the nuance, we have to discuss
uh,
those scenarios where we think we have a very clear picture. But once we
uh,
start looking at uh, the third person away, right? When we start to look at the impact of our actions across a farther group of people. So, I do something to you, it affects you this way, right? That's it's much easier to define something in that instance. Yeah. But let me
uh,
give an example, an analogy, right? Someone is trying to kill me. I kill that person
yeah,
first. In that
yeah,
instance, it almost looks like, yeah, 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 you have done something good, regardless of how you look at it, right? Even though you killed someone, you've done something good. But
yeah,
then when you then look at the fact that that person that I killed maybe have very young kids
yeah. Wives,
that now don't
relatives,
have a
people, those
father,
kind of
exactly. Is it still
yeah,
good? Should I have just beaten that person enough to be put in the hospital but recover and
yeah.
survive theirs? Once you start to think a little bit more extensively, it's all fluff. It's all in the hair.
It
And
becomes
when you
easier.
look at the impact of the actions of global leaders and all that stuff, it's a completely different conversation. So yes, it is perspectives. It's always nuanced, and we hope that some of the things we've discussed here just allows people to it allow people to think about good, bad, and be a little bit more patient in judgment. And the reason, this is also one of the reasons why I think this is one of the best first topics we can have, because moving
Hmm.
forward, you would realize that this is a judgment free space and every opinion actually counts because everyone has a reason. As you said from the beginning, everyone has a reason. And that's one thing. This is why this is an important conversation. From our perspective, and Ibrahim, let me know if you think this is true or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
But
I mean, I
as
feel
Think
like at the
Talk,
end of the
Malik and Ibra, it's a judgment free space and every perspective, every opinion is valid. We don't think anyone is inherently good or bad. I think we're just humans. We're
we're here to just to hear people's
exactly,
different opinions and perspective at the end of the day. Yeah.
exactly.